My sister has always had a gift for performing in public. She can look like a saint while twisting the knife, smile like a princess while gutting you emotionally, and gesture so elegantly that people never notice she's aiming right at you. So when she called me the lonely one in front of 70 people at her engagement party, I shouldn't have been surprised. But I still felt the sting explode through my chest. I still felt that hot wave of humiliation rise into my throat. I still felt the room tilt just a little, like the chandelier above us had suddenly become too bright. The worst part. She said it while fake laughing into a microphone, her tone dripping with that condescending sweetness only she could weaponize. "Oh, don't mind my sister Emily," she told the crowd, patting my shoulder like a pet. "She's always been the lonely one. But I'm sure she'll meet someone eventually." People laughed politely. I froze. Her fiancé, Andrew, winced as if he genuinely hadn't expected her to say something so cruel. My mother pursed her lips but said nothing. My father busied himself with a wine glass. A few guests looked at me with sympathy, the kind that stings worse than the insult. I smiled tightly, because that's what I'd trained myself to do around her. But inside, something cracked. And quietly, beneath the humiliation and the heat and the shaking in my chest, a small, steady voice whispered, "She won't be smiling for long." Because what my sister didn't know, not yet, was that I wasn't lonely. I wasn't single. I wasn't unlucky or invisible or forgotten. I was engaged. Engaged to a man she hadn't met. A man I loved deeply. A man who respected me in all the ways she never had. A man who had told me, that very morning, that he'd surprise me later at the venue after he finished his shift at the hospital. And in his pocket, he carried the most beautiful, meaningful engagement ring I'd ever seen. He planned to propose privately before the party. We planned to announce it quietly after her speeches were done. But my sister, oh my sister, wanted a stage. She wanted an audience. She wanted to paint me as the sad supporting character in her fairy tale. She wanted to humiliate me. And she had no idea she had just set up the perfect moment for her own undoing. To be fair, my sister Olivia had always been, well, Olivia. The golden child. The admired one. The charmer. The one who, even at 5 years old, acted like life itself was her spotlight. By comparison, I was the soft one. The thoughtful one. The quiet observer in the background of her loud, dazzling existence. Olivia thrived in attention the way plants thrive in sunlight, and she wilted without it. That was where most of our problems began. Because as we grew up, attention became her oxygen. But love, real love, became mine. She wanted admirers. I wanted connection. She wanted applause. I wanted partnership. She wanted her life to be envied. I wanted mine to be shared. And because we wanted different types of fulfillment, she assumed the worst of mine. That my quietness meant lack. That my privacy meant failure. That my independence meant loneliness. She never understood that some of us don't need an audience to feel seen. But she kept trying to give me one anyway, so she could humiliate me on the stage she built. Her engagement party was exactly what you'd expect from someone like Olivia. Enormous chandeliers, a champagne fountain, a 3-tiered cake covered in edible roses, and a guest list so curated it could have doubled as a networking event. Every detail screamed, "Look at how perfect my life is." I wasn't jealous. If anything, I was relieved that my life wasn't curated like hers. But I knew, instinctively, with the same accuracy as feeling rain before it falls, that she would find a way to take a jab at me. It was tradition. Olivia never missed an opportunity to remind the world, and me, that she was winning. But for the first hour of the event, she behaved surprisingly well. She circulated the room gracefully. She kissed cheeks. She held Andrew's hand like she was in a romance advertisement. She made little speeches thanking everyone for coming. She even hugged me when I arrived, telling me, "Try to smile tonight, okay? Even if you're, tired." I knew what tired meant in Olivia language. Tired equals lonely. Tired equals single. Tired equals pitiful. Tired equals not her. Still, I swallowed the comment. Tonight wasn't about me. It was her moment. At least, that's what I kept reminding myself. Let me tell you a secret, though. I didn't tell anyone in my family about my relationship with Daniel. Not even that we were dating, let alone engaged. Not because I was hiding him. But because with Olivia, privacy was protection. She had a long, well-documented history of competing with me in ways only I seemed to notice. If I liked a boy in high school, she flirted with him. If I wore a new dress, she bought the same one in a more expensive brand. If I got a raise, she got a bigger one, somehow, miraculously, within the month. When Daniel and I began dating, something in my chest warned me. Keep this safe. Keep this yours. And he understood. He said, tell them when you're ready. Not when you're pressured. He always said things like that. Simple words that healed deeper wounds. He wanted to propose quietly, thoughtfully, privately, just us. But life had other plans. Or maybe fate did. Because Olivia had set the stage for humiliation. And fate had prepared the perfect reversal. It was during her second speech of the night that everything went sideways. She tapped a champagne glass, smiled at the crowd, and launched into a monologue about love, loyalty, and destiny. I expected the usual theatrics. Instead, she swayed slightly toward me, placing a hand dramatically over her heart. And of course, she said sweetly, I'm so grateful for my family. Especially my sister Emily, who has always been my rock. The crowd oohed. I blinked. My rock. What alternate universe were we in? She continued. Emily has always been so supportive, even though she's, well. She paused for effect. Dear God. Here it comes. The lonely one. Gasps rippled softly. A few strained chuckles followed, the kind of laughter people give when they don't know if they're supposed to laugh or be horrified. My palms began to sweat. My throat tightened. She went on, tone sickeningly sweet. She's like the quiet little guardian angel who never quite finds her own happiness, you know? I felt the hit deep in my ribs. It wasn't the words themselves. It was the intention behind them. The dismissal. The erasure. The casual rewriting of my life into a tragic subplot of her own romance. But before anger could rise, before shame could choke me, something unexpected happened. I heard gasps. Louder this time. Sharp. Surprised. The room shifted. Heads turned. People murmured. Olivia paused, confused. Microphone lowered. I followed their gaze to the entrance. There, stepping into the golden light of the ballroom, wearing his charcoal suit and hospital ID badge clipped to his pocket, stood Daniel. My Daniel. The man I loved. And walking beside him was the event coordinator who'd guided him directly inside. But what stole every breath from my lungs wasn't his presence. It was the small velvet box he held in his hand. He was smiling, not broadly, not showily, but with the quiet certainty of someone who knew exactly who he loved and wasn't afraid to show it. And the moment our eyes met, I saw it. Relief. Recognition. Belonging. He lifted the ring box slightly, signaling what he'd come here to do. The whispers turned into a soft wave of awe. Oh my God. Is that Emily? That's her fiancé. She has a fiancé. My mother looked ready to faint. My father sat up straighter than I'd ever seen him. Danny clapped a hand over her mouth. And Olivia. Her face drained of color so quickly it was almost frightening. She stared at Daniel. Then at the ring. Then at me. Her lips parted. No sound came out. Because in that instant, as my fiancé walked forward, eyes locked on mine, every cruel word she'd spoken, every carefully orchestrated jab, every attempt to paint me as the lonely one shattered at her feet. Daniel reached me, gently took my hand, and said quietly enough for only me to hear, I couldn't wait. I wanted you to know, even here, especially here, that I choose you. Always. My breath caught. The room leaned forward collectively. He lowered himself slightly, not a grand kneel, not a theatrical gesture, but a soft, intimate motion full of sincerity. And when he opened the box, the light caught the ring in a perfect glimmer. Olivia swayed, gripping Andrew's arm like she needed support. Her microphone clattered to the floor. And Daniel whispered, "Emily, will you marry me?" Time didn't slow down when Daniel asked me to marry him. It sharpened. Every sound in the room became crystal clear. The soft intake of breath from people who didn't know I had someone, the slight metallic clatter of forks hitting plates, even the distant hum of the string quartet pausing mid-song because someone had gasped loud enough to make them look up. But the loudest thing I felt was my own heartbeat, steady and certain. Daniel was kneeling. My sister was frozen. The room was silent. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel overshadowed by Olivia. I felt centered, chosen, seen. "Yes," I whispered. It wasn't a shaky yes. It wasn't a shocked yes. It was the yes of someone who had spent months loving him in quiet moments, in real life, far away from the stage my sister lived on. "Yes," I repeated, louder this time. The crowd erupted with applause, real applause, the warm kind people give when they're witnessing joy that feels genuine. Daniel slipped the ring on my finger, stood, and pulled me into a soft embrace. He didn't dip me theatrically. He didn't spin me around. He didn't perform for the audience. He held me like we were the only two people who mattered. And that, more than anything, made my sister's expression crumble. Olivia stared at us, mouth parted, eyes glossy with disbelief. She hadn't blinked since he entered the room. Her fiancé, Andrew, touched her arm gently. "Liv, are you okay?" She looked at him as if he'd spoken in another language. Then she snapped. "Wait." She said it too loudly, panic sharp in her voice. "Wait, wait, wait." The applause quieted. Daniel and I separated slightly, and I turned toward her. She stormed toward us in her shimmering gold dress, every step heavy with disbelief and desperation. "Emily, what is happening?" she demanded, her voice quivering. "You're engaged? Since when? To who? Why didn't you tell anyone?" Her questions were weapons disguised as concern. "Olivia," I began. "No," she cut me off, finger shaking. This is my night. My engagement. And you." She pointed at Daniel like he was an intruder. "Who are you?" Daniel remained calm. "I'm Daniel. Emily's fiancé." "I heard that part," she snapped, voice breaking. "But how did this happen?" She's not." She looked around, grasping for words. "Emily's not romantic. Emily's not spontaneous. Emily's not." She stalled. What she really wanted to say was, "Emily's not someone who gets chosen." Her silence said it for her. People shifted uncomfortably. Andrew gently took her elbow. "Olivia, maybe we should talk privately." "No," she said sharply, pulling away. "Everyone needs to hear this." "Oh no." She wasn't embarrassed because of what I had done. She was embarrassed because the narrative she built, the one where she was the loved one, the admired one, the successful one, was unraveling in front of her. I stepped forward. "Liv, I didn't come here to overshadow you." "No," she whispered. "Then why hide him? Why keep everything secret? Why let me think you were alone?" I offered softly. She flinched. A few guests gasped. Daniel took my hand gently. "I didn't tell anyone because I wanted something to be mine," I said. "Something private. Something safe." Her eyes narrowed. "Safe from what?" "From me." "Yes," I said quietly. The silence after that was deafening. I saw her swallow hard, mascara trembling on her lashes. She whispered, "I would never hurt you." I raised an eyebrow. Even the chandelier above us seemed to flicker at the lie. I didn't need to list the 100 little ways she had hurt me. The stolen crushes, the social sabotage, the guilt-tripping, the belittling jokes passed off as sisterly teasing. The entire room had just witnessed Exhibit A. You called me the lonely one, I said, keeping my voice soft, controlled. You humiliated me in front of everyone. And you've done things like that my whole life. So yes, Daniel and I kept our relationship private. Because we didn't want it turned into something you could compete with. She looked stunned. Like I'd spoken a language she could hear but didn't understand. I continued. You wanted me small. You wanted me safe. You wanted me where you could predict me. She whispered. No, I didn't think. I know, I said. You never think I'm anything more. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her mother-in-law-to-be, who had been watching from the corner, whispered to her husband. Oh dear. Someone else murmured. Poor girl. And suddenly Olivia realized the room was no longer her audience. It was her mirror. And they were seeing her clearly. Her face crumbled. She spun around and fled the ballroom. Daniel exhaled. Should you go after her? I looked toward the hallway where Olivia disappeared. My whole life, I would have followed her automatically. My whole life, I would have been the fixer. The calmer. The quiet, dependable emotional sponge. But tonight, I shook my head. No. She needs to face herself before she can face me. Daniel nodded, brushing a thumb across my cheek. I'm here if you need me. His steadiness grounded me. Andrew slipped through the crowd, expression guilty and apologetic. I'm so sorry, he said. She's overwhelmed. I sighed. I know. He hesitated. She loves you, you know. She just doesn't know how to show it properly. That's not love, I said gently. That's fear disguised as control. He winced. He knew I was right. 20 minutes later, after I'd finally caught my breath and Daniel had introduced himself to a circle of excited guests, my mother approached me. Her face was stiff and pale, embarrassment battling with pride, confusion battling with defensiveness. Can we speak? She asked. I nodded, expecting more criticism. But instead she said, I didn't know. That was all. I didn't know you had someone, she whispered. I didn't know you were happy. I swallowed. You never asked. She flinched, just like Olivia had. I suppose we've been too focused on Olivia, she admitted quietly. She always demanded more attention. She didn't demand it, I corrected. You gave it to her. Mom blinked, stunned by the truth of it. I'm sorry, she said softly. I should have seen you more. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And for the first time in my life, hearing the words I'm sorry from her felt like a door cracking open in a lonely hallway. Eventually, my father joined the conversation too. He wasn't emotional. He wasn't dramatic. He simply put a hand on my shoulder and said, You've grown up into someone remarkable. Coming from him, it meant more than he'd ever understand. Later that night, when most guests had gone home and the staff was stacking chairs and boxing leftover cake, I found Olivia outside on the brick patio. Her makeup was smudged. Her shoes were off. She looked small for the first time in her life. She didn't look angry. She looked afraid. Olivia, I said softly. She stiffened. Are you here to laugh at me? No. I'm here so you're not alone. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. She wiped her eyes. I don't understand how you had this whole life I never knew about. You never asked, I said gently. I know, she whispered. Because I didn't want your life to be better than mine. Her voice cracked. And there it was. The truth that had hovered like fog between us since childhood. I've always been scared, she said. Scared that if you were happy, people would love you more than me. I exhaled softly. Love isn't a competition. It was, she said. At least in my head. And I treated you like the opponent. She began crying again. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Em. I don't want to be this person anymore. I stepped forward and hugged her. Not because she deserved immediate forgiveness, but because she needed hope. And because she was my sister. And I loved her, even when loving her was hard. She clung to me like someone holding on to a life raft. After a long moment she pulled back. Her voice was small. Do you hate me? No, I said truthfully. But I needed you to see me. She nodded, crying again. I do now, she whispered. I see you. And you're incredible. It was imperfect healing. But it was real. Inside, Daniel waited beside the fountain, holding 2 champagne flutes. When I approached, he smiled like the entire night had been worth it. My sister looked at him shyly. Congratulations, really. He nodded kindly. Thank you. Then she added, voice cracking again. And thank you for loving her the way she deserves. I squeezed her hand. We weren't magically fixed. But we were beginning. Standing in the empty ballroom with Daniel's hand in mine, the ring shining softly under the chandelier, I realized something. Being underestimated your whole life teaches you to grow quietly. But being underestimated doesn't mean you're unloved. It doesn't mean you're unworthy. And it definitely doesn't mean you're alone. People who try to shrink you do so because they fear their own reflection. But the truth is simple. Happiness isn't a competition. And love doesn't require permission. My sister used a microphone to humiliate me. But fate handed me a moment that amplified who I truly was. Loved. Chosen. Seen. Whole. She called me the lonely one. But I was never lonely. I was simply waiting for the right person to walk in. And he did. With the ring. With the love. With the future we're building together. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.